In Hebei province. Hebei province is a neighbouring to Beijing, so imagine Beijing like a circle and Hebei just sort of cuddles it around like this. And Zhengding is where Xi Jinping actually started his political career in earnest. This is our second stop of 5 as we travel from Shanxi to Shanghai and everywhere in between in our search for the making of Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping's time in Shanxi was spent first as a farmer, as a sent-down youth during when they went to be re-educated. And then he managed to progress to being a party village chief. Once he completed his time there, which was 7 years, he went on to go and study engineering at Tsinghua University in Beijing. And upon graduating, he managed to secure some roles in some central organisations in Beijing. But these roles, these desk jobs, they left him feeling unfulfilled, especially after you take into consideration he'd spent so long down at the grassroots with the people. So he took the unusual step of requesting to be sent back to the countryside. And that's where we are here now. Zhengding was a quiet, sleepy backwater when Xi Jinping arrived here in 1982, and he set about implementing a series of creative policies that would encourage talent and grow the creative industries here. Let's have a little look behind me. Look over here. So the capital of Hebei province is Zhengding, which is something that I find very difficult to say, and I've had to say it on many occasions. And you can see it just over there on the horizon. The reason that I'm pointing this out to you is that it relates to one of the policies that Xi implemented. So back in 1982, when he first arrived here, he realised that the county lacked talent. It had lots of people here who were willing to work very hard. And in fact, the president has said on multiple occasions that, you know, one of the things he loved about this province is its hard-working people. But it lacked ideas, it lacked entrepreneurs. So he decided in spring of 1983 to publish favourable policies in Hebei Daily. And these policies were sort of like a call to action, inviting people to propose ideas that could be used and developed here in Zhengding. And within a short amount of time, he found himself inundated with replies. In fact, he said he got 1,000 replies, and one of them was from a gentleman called Wu Baoxin. Now, Wu Baoxin, like I said, is from the capital, just over there over my shoulder. And he was an engineer, but in his part-time, he made formulas for body creams. And one of them in particular was quite famous, and that was for a foot cream. And the president was really excited by this idea, so he decided that he'd go and visit this guy personally. But when he decided to do this, it was 7 o'clock at night, and the neighbourhood where Wu lived was an hour's ride away on bicycle. But regardless, the president jumped on his bike and headed down to the neighbourhood. By the time he got there, however, the light was fading and the address that he had was pretty vague. So when he realised he was in the right area, he just started shouting his name. And the community is quite a dense community. You know, even in the early 1980s, a lot of people live there. And to think that you'd be able to find somebody just by shouting their name seems ridiculous, seems like a needle in a haystack sort of task. But Xi found him. And when he found him, he invited him down to talk to him, and he said that he wanted Zhengding to be able to license some of the products that Wu was making. And this late night pitch turned out to be an excellent idea. Wu agreed, obviously, and within the first year alone, the county made 300,000 yuan just from Wu's products alone. So that's one example of the creativity and how President Xi looked at making talent bring money into the province. And the next one is all about TV and film. And before we get there, which is a little bit away, I'm going to be like the president, and I'm going to get on my bike and ride there. See you in a minute. Okay, let's go to Wrong Mansion. So tourism was going to prove a really important strategy on behalf of the president. He would initiate projects, especially one that we're going to now, that would attract a lot of people to come to this county and the province at large, actually. You know, with Beijing, they have the Forbidden City and other great big sites. And so Zhengding and Hebei as a whole was really trying to build this up from the early 1980s. And she was here for 3.5 years, like I said, starting in 1982. Let's get up this hill first. So here I am at Wrong Mansion. Come on, let's have a look. Let me just park up. So in 1983, just after President Xi Jinping had actually moved here, he found out there was a film production company that was scouting for a location. And that was going to be this. It was based on a book called A Dream of a Red Mansion, or also The Story in the Stone. And this whole complex was built to be the location for that film. I just want to draw your attention to two things before we walk in. Firstly, there's two lions. There's one here and there's one here. The male and the female, they both guard the entrance to the house. And this is something you see quite often throughout China. And also I want you to have a look at the sign above the door. The two final characters say by imperial order. So that means that this is a house, a mansion that's belonging to people who are in the upper classes of society. So come on in. Sorry, excuse me. So the idea to build a location for a film was not met with encouragement by everyone. Come on down. The actual budget for this whole complex was going to be 3.5 million yuan. When you have a little look around, you can see why that's so. And at the time, in 1983, that was a huge amount of money. The annual revenue of Zhengding County annually that year was 11 million yuan. So that's like a third just to go on this one project. Come and have a look. Have a little look at the details. So this whole complex is on 22,000 square meters and there's 212 rooms. And if you look at it, Everything here is painted and it's made out of real wood, real stone. And this was revolutionary at the time. Come on through. Because at the time, film sets were normally made out of foam board and just dashed together. So this was a really, really high quality project. Come on down. And look at the attention to detail here. It's absolutely amazing. The roof tiles over here are actually made out of an uncoloured slate. And in earlier times, the colour of the roof used to denote the people that live there. So somewhere like the Forbidden City in Beijing has yellow tiles, and that colour tile could only be used on an emperor's building. And then the colour of turquoise or a green colour could only be used where the empress lived. Now, in the book that this whole complex is based on, because the writer didn't specifically say what colour the roof tiles were, the designer of the complex didn't actually make a decision there because they wanted to keep it as close to the text as possible. So walk up here. So the whole layout of this complex is related to the way that social structure works in society in ancient China. So we're here on the axial mean, which goes from north to south or south to north. This way is from east to west. And the most important person that would live in a complex like this would always live at the top of the axial mean. So that's just up there. And then the left-hand side, so the northwest of this, would then be the next person in the hierarchy, and the person on the northeast would then be the next person down. And to have a little look at the people who might have lived here, and in fact, the characters that were in the films that have been filmed here, have a little look at this diorama over here. And I don't know if you can see, but if you zoom into the woman, she's got an eye on you. Okay. So although this project was first proposed in the early 1980s, it wasn't until 1987 that the TV series A Dream of a Red Mansion was actually released. We're just going to go down some stairs, so I'll make sure my cameraman doesn't fall over. And to date, this whole complex has actually been the location of up to 170 dramas and TV series and films. And they're still being made here today. And you can see why. It's beautiful. Come on through up the axial mean. Okay, we're getting to the area now where the actual official, the main man of the house, would have lived should this have been a real house. But obviously this is a film set. And in fact, it was one of the first ever film and TV bases in China. And yeah, it's beautiful. Come and have a little look up here. So back to President Xi, when he proposed this project, this 3.5 million yuan project, officials were not very happy about it. They were not very keen because at the time, the most popular tourist destination here in Zhengding actually only cost 1 jiao. So that's 1/10 of 1 yuan. So for example, it's, 10 cents of a dollar, right? And they said, at that rate, it's going to take us over 100 years to recoup the costs. But Xi was very, very keen on this project because he knew that it would not only attract film crews, but it would also attract something else which would create revenue: tourists. And he was right. In the very first year alone, this complex actually made 17 million yuan. Now, the officials and the management of this thing said making profits was as easily as raking in leaves. So this is our very second stop in our 5 series looking at the making of Xi Jinping. We've already been to Shanxi. This is our stop in Hebei. And our next stop is going to be Fujian, where the president lived and worked for 17 years, going there as a single man and leaving with a wife, a child, and a vision for the future. Thank you very much. See you next time.